A man galloped over the icy white snowfield. 3 people were chasing after him. The arrow, which left the string, penetrated the running man's leg accurately. The body fell. The man rolled on the ground, then quickly got back on his feet and started running, but his speed had already decreased significantly. The fugitive, who had slowed down, was soon overtaken by the pursuer. Rajal, the senior ranger of the Algor kingdom, who has kicked the fugitive on the back, finally realized that the long pursuit of the past few days had come to an end. The fugitive raced through the snow-covered northern forests for 3 days at a speed comparable to that of a northern kingdom ranger, barely sleeping. He was a natural ranger. Rajal looked at the fallen fugitive and pulled out a long sword he was wearing around his waist. An eerie cry rang out soon after. Unfortunately, however, the man was a fugitive who stole the sacred relics of the Flame Church and ran away. The instruction from the superior was to cut the man's head and retrieve the sacred relics of the Flame Church. Even if it was a sacred object that was not important to the Flame Church, the upper echelons of the kingdom always wanted to be seen by them. Red blood splattered on the pure white snow. The head of the fugitive rolled down in a clean blow that even a rogue would admire. Rajal lightly wiped the blood off his sword and gave an order with a chin gesture. "Search!" Rajal, who picked the blue glass and money, turned his back without hesitation. "Now that we've completed the recovery of the relics, let's go back," said Rajal. The rangers left behind the fugitive's corpse, returning through the snowfield. After the rangers went back, the day gradually started to get dark. The hand on the fugitive's body, whose neck had been separated, began to wriggle. A woman's dried hand climbed up the fugitive's body and touched his neck. Then it grabbed the fugitive's collar and started shaking him. "Don't be upset. Mother of corruption!" The headless body slowly rose from the snowfield, removed the dried hand from its neck, and put it in a pocket inside its chest. "I needed to die here once." The headless body picked up the head that was talking to itself and put it on its slashed neck. After a while, the now healed fugitive, who is introduced to us as the protagonist of our story, Marnak, the priest of corruption, grinned and tells the hand, "If it's the divinity contained in the holy relic, haven't you already recovered it? Now there's no reason for them to tail us." But however, Marnak states that he did happen to lose some money. Marnak's past is revealed to us. In his late 20s, he became too busy and exhausted to play games, so he resorted to using an editor to make compromises with reality in the games he played. He doesn't even remember the name of the game, or why he bought it, but he continued playing as the priest of corruption. This character is known to be the most challenging, difficult to play, and least performing class, yet Marnak couldn't resist the excitement it brought. As he completed all his class quests, and ran out of progression materials, he suddenly found himself falling into the game, and becoming the priest of corruption. In the present time, Marnak is haunted by a voice screaming, "Murder," non-stop in his mind, while a hand is seen gripping onto his chest. He explains that the screaming voice belongs to the goddess he serves, the mother of corruption. It all started 5 years ago, when he began serving her. Upon waking up in the game, he had only 2 things, a robe from the Order of Corruption and the hand of the Mother of Corruption resting on his chest. He easily accepted that he had fallen into the game due to the presence he felt connected to the hand. According to the game description, the priest of corruption is a genetically modified human who has been enhanced through drugs. This has given him enhanced physical abilities, heightened senses, and a body that can only be killed by divine means. He also realizes that something might be wrong with his brain because he used to be unable to tolerate blood, but after witnessing a brutal scene of a bear devouring its prey, it no longer affects him. However, this has caused him to lose his sense of taste and touch, making food meaningless to him. He still longs for the taste of pork belly and kimchi. After a few days, Marnak visited the mercenary guild and received his ID from a receptionist. He thanked her and inquired about possible work opportunities. she asked him to wait while she looked through some files, mentioning that they might have a job for a priest serving the goddess of preservation like him. Upon entering the northern city of Guise, Marnak decides to disguise himself as a member of the Order of Preservation. He understands that if he were a member of a different order and impersonated a member of another order, his god would become angry and mark him with a seal of punishment that only members of the order can see. However, the Mother of Corruption was benevolent in regards to impersonations like this, as the Order of Corruption was hated by all and he was the Mother of Corruption's only follower. The receptionist handed Marnak a job application for a task involving hunting bandits or monsters. Recently, there has been an increase in the number of farmers disappearing while traveling towards Guise. As a result, this job was issued, offering a reward of 30 silver coins per head to those who can uncover the reason behind these disappearances and defeat the threat. While Marnak was reading the application, the receptionist expressed her relief in working with him, as most other mercenaries would ask her to read everything for them due to their illiteracy. Marnak humbly replied that reading is not a special skill for him, explaining that he miraculously gained the ability to read and write when he arrived in this world. Marnak then inquired if it was possible to receive the reward in advance. The scene shifts to a convoy of mercenaries, including Marnak, walking along the roads where the farmers have gone missing, investigating the situation. In Marnak's thoughts, he refers to the receptionist as someone who talks excessively. The hand on his chest, known as the Mother of Corruption, responds with anger, and Marnak reassures her that he is not in love with the receptionist and warns her to stop mentioning murders, as it irritates him. While lost in thought, Marnak suddenly heard a voice from behind calling out to him. He turned around to find a man named Pierre, who claimed to be certain that Marnak was not from Guise. Pierre asked if Marnak would mind sharing where he came from and mentioned that if they continued along the road, they would reach his village soon. Pierre also expressed his hopes for the well-being of his parents and began discussing rumors about ghostly beings kidnapping farmers on this road. Marnak found Pierre to be overly talkative and somewhat annoying. As they were talking, Captain Galad, the party leader, called for Pierre. Pierre informed Marnak that he needed to go ahead and promised to return later. In the meantime, Marnak could hear the voice of the Mother of Corruption in his mind, mumbling about murder. Marnak, frustrated, touched the hand of the Mother of Corruption on his chest, beneath his clothes, and questioned why she kept urging him to kill everyone, warning that it would become a problem if they all died. However, the hand continued to mutter about murder. In an angry tone, Marnak pointed out that the Mother of Corruption never said anything when he returned to Guise and that his son now desperately needed 20 silver nips as he would like to spend this winter in warmth. Upon hearing the information, the prevailing tension in the room subsided, prompting Marnak to address the Mother of Corruption in a more composed manner. He acknowledged his prior assertiveness, and reassured her that there was no cause for sorrow. With a sense of curiosity, Marnak then inquired how the Mother of Corruption would assess the individuals present, seeking to understand her perspective. A peculiar phenomenon unfolded, as a hand emerged above each person, denoting the number of fingers that represented their respective ratings. This led Marnak to the observation that no one among them appeared to possess any distinct exceptional qualities. Rather, they seemed to be on relatively equal footing. In a thought-provoking turn, Marnak contemplated the potential outcome of eliminating these individuals and offering them as sacrifices to the Mother of Corruption. He envisioned receiving divinity in accordance with the number of fingers assigned to each person, with a single finger translating to 10 divinity, 2 fingers to 100, 3 fingers to 1,000, 4 fingers to 10,000, and 5 fingers to 100,000 divinity. In continuation, Marnak shared that he had successfully absorbed the divinity from a holy relic, consequently gaining 1 authority. Now, with only 12 relics remaining, he disclosed the Mother of Corruption's assertion that collecting the divinity of each relic would culminate in the fulfillment of all his wishes. As Marnak contemplated seeking the Mother of Corruption's aid to restore his sense of taste, Pierre returned and advised not to bother the captain, as it might annoy him. Marnak assured Pierre that he was fine and not to worry too much. Unexpectedly, the convoy fell victim to a lethal barrage of arrows. Reacting swiftly, the protagonist shielded Pierre from the incoming projectiles, but Marnak himself succumbed to the attack, collapsing to the ground. While lying there, he overheard the mother of corruption mentioning the word murder, leading him to believe that the attackers were likely bandits. He sensed a subtle suggestion from the mother to feign death, and seized the opportunity to collect the divinity of the fallen individuals. Despite considering this tempting option, Marnak rejected it. Instead, he stood up and armed himself with a nearby sword. Asserting that this was his way of handling things, he swiftly decapitated a bandit who was about to launch another arrow. A man on the side intervened, instructing his comrades to leave Marnak to him while they dealt with the rest of the convoy. Marnak engaged in a formidable sword fight with the bandit, during which he asked the mother of corruption how she would rank him. The mother of corruption signified a ranking with 2.5 fingers. Amused by the situation, Marnak pondered the apparent discrepancy between the bandit's skills and those of the ranger who previously attacked him. However, the bandit eventually managed to break Marnak's sword in half and considered letting him go due to his perceived lack of distinction. The bandit revealed that they had planned for this to be their last job and proposed calling it quits and leaving. Marnak countered with a proposal for them to abandon their criminal ways and depart immediately, with the assurance that he would go easy on them. The bandit was bewildered by this offer, doubting they would just comply and leave peacefully. Before Marnak could respond, he was suddenly shot in the head by an arrow and fell to the ground once more. To the bandit's surprise, Marnak rose again, unharmed. He explained that he had given them a chance, and their response was to aim an arrow at his head. As they panicked and tried to escape, Marnak activated an authority that prevented living enemies from fleeing, confining the bandits within an invisible barrier, and concealed the divinity of corruption and expressed his fondness for this particular divine ability. The bandit leader then ordered his comrades to unsheath their swords and to slice through Marnak, but then suddenly, the air was torn apart and a giant creature fell. For huge arms, a head with only a mouth on a plain bare face. The giant's abdomen was similar to the upper body of a muscular man with bulging muscles. The giant slowly decayed from the outside and at the same time gained new flesh. Finally, the giant's mouth opened wide and let out a scream. The bandits, overcome with emotion and tears, pleaded with Marnak to spare their lives, vowing to never return to banditry. Marnak, with a smile, commanded the monster to do as it pleased with everything except their heads. After some time, Marnak found himself beside the corpses of the mercenaries who had accompanied him. The mother of corruption again mentioned murder, prompting Marnak to explain that he couldn't collect divinity from their bodies to avoid suspicion from guild members who were investigating the incident. Noticing that Pierre was still barely alive, Marnak assured the mother of corruption that he would resolve the situation and make sure she could rest in peace. He expressed his commitment to saving Pierre, as it would enhance his reputation, and requested the mother of corruption's assistance in halting Pierre's worsening injuries. A scene followed with a woman holding the stolen relic, accompanied by a priest. The woman inquired about the fate of the individual who had stolen the relic, to which the man replied that the thief had been beheaded on the spot. He explained that due to limited supplies, they were forced to return with only the relic. The revelation led the woman to fall silent briefly before expressing her intention to embark on a pilgrimage, driven by a prophecy received 10 years ago, predicting the arrival of an end in human form on Earth. At the front gates of Guise, guards observed Marnak carrying Pierre with ease. They assisted Marnak and took Pierre inside the gates. The receptionist informed Marnak that he could now enter, having obtained permission from the guards. As they entered the city, the receptionist commented on Marnak's strength, to which Marnak modestly acknowledged. The receptionist inquired about the bandits' heads Marnak was carrying, recognizing them as the source of their problems. She suggested that the guild hold on to the heads for the time being, and Marnak agreed, handing them over. The receptionist then asked if Marnak had a place to stay for the night. Marnak mentioned his intention to find one, but the receptionist kindly offered her place, leading Marnak's heart to race. In the meantime, the Mother of Creation repeatedly shouted, "Murder!" in jealousy. The following morning, Marnak woke up on a bed and assured the Mother of Corruption that he understood the situation. He explained that he had accepted the receptionist's offer without any deceitful intentions, acknowledging his misunderstanding of her offer to let him sleep in the mercenary guest room. Suddenly, a knock on the door interrupted him, and the receptionist informed him that she preferred him to rest longer, but there was something he needed to attend to. Marnak got up and asked about the matter at hand. The receptionist mentioned that the Lord wanted to see him, while the Mother of Corruption's hand could be seen on the bed, screaming, "Murder!" in jealousy. Marnak inquired if the receptionist knew the reason for the Lord's request, and she revealed that Captain Galad from the mercenary group, who had recently passed away, was the Lord's half-brother. After a while, Marnak found himself at the estate of Lord Tradon Filion, the ruler of Guis. The butler who had been guiding Marnak was ordered to leave by Tradon, and after his departure, Tradon inquired if Marnak had been the one to witness his brother's final moments. He offered tea with a grin on his face, which made Marnak think back to how the Mother of Corruption had drawn an X when she first saw Tradon. Marnak then boldly questioned Tradon about his existence as a lord, positing that he was a demon possessing a human form. He explained that the Mother of Corruption drew an X because demons were the only beings capable of taking human form. Marnak elaborated on how demons were powerful but had to make deals with the world's beings to become a part of it, leading them to love all living beings. However, the gods despised demons for their transactions, which eventually led to a priest hunt against them. Tredon's expression changed from stiffness to a more relaxed demeanor. He referred to Marnak as a special guest, acknowledging that he had been recognized. Tradon playfully scanned Marnak and speculated that he was not a priest of the goddess of preservation. He then introduced himself as Crawling Weight, and Marnak reciprocated by identifying himself as the priest serving the Mother of Corruption. During their conversation, Tradon casually asked Marnak to share how Galad had died, promising to compensate him for his efforts. Marnak agreed to recount the events and later pondered the unfortunate incident while leaving the estate. He explained that Galad had died during a job assigned by Tradon in secret. Upon receiving a bag of gold from Tradon, the Mother of Corruption expressed her displeasure, "Murder." Marnak assured her that he hadn't been tempted by the gold, and that it was merely Tredon's way of seeking the truth. He mentioned that gold doesn't rot, much like something else that lasts forever, the love he held for the Mother of Corruption, ensuring her of his unwavering dedication. After entering the mercenary guild, Marnak was greeted by the receptionist, who suggested he meet the priests from the teaching sect. The Mother of Corruption immediately informed Marnak that one of them possessed a holy relic. Marnak was then introduced to Orvis, a priest of preservation, along with Kronu and Petina. Orvis mentioned they needed to greet Lord Tradon briefly and promised to have a more extended conversation later. The receptionist informed Marnak that their guild provided shelter to priests for a small fee. She playfully asked if he thought she allowed him to sleep there because she was interested in him, to which he replied embarrassedly that he didn't think so. She revealed that she had her own intentions in helping him and asked if he could cast a blessing of preservation on their food to prevent it from spoiling. Marnak was taken aback and nervously questioned why she was whispering in his ear, to which she teasingly replied, "I wonder why." Just at that moment, a man remarked that Marnak and the receptionist seemed to get along well. When Marnak turned to look in the direction of the voice, he saw Priest Kornu, and he asked if Kornu had just returned from going out with the others. Kornu explained that he had no choice but to do so because of his responsibilities to his people, adding that many lords in the north didn't have a favorable impression of him. In response, the receptionist interjected, expressing her belief that Lord Tradon didn't concern himself with such opinions. She noted that despite his cold demeanor, he was competent at his job and adept at separating work from his personal life. She also pointed out that Lord Traydon had strong support within Guis, so it would be wise to refrain from speaking poorly of him. Cornu acknowledged her advice and said he would keep it in mind. Marnak then inquired why they had decided to visit the Lord. Cornu explained that they were following prophecies received 10 years ago, which indicated that the end of the world would hide in the husk of life, interpreted by priest Orvis to refer to a demon. Marnak asked if they were here because they suspected the Lord of being a demon, to which Cornu replied that it was not the case. Orvis merely wanted to check for himself, as he possessed the ability to determine if someone was a demon using his holy relic. As they discussed this, a sudden explosion erupted from the Lord's mansion. They witnessed the demon with crocodile features wreaking havoc, and then saw Orvis wielding a massive hammer of pure white light, striking the enormous demon on its head. It was the hammer of punishment, one of the representative powers of the Reformation priests. Cornu looked at Marnak and said urgently, "We have to go help." He looked at the demon running wild in the distance, and his face stiffened. Marnak then instructed Cornu to proceed ahead, assuring him that he would follow closely. He quickly made his way back to the mercenary guild, and upon opening the door, Aaron, the receptionist, inquired about what was happening. Marnak urgently asked for the location of the medical center where Pierre was being treated and carried Aaron in his arms, seeking directions while leaving the guild in haste. Aaron, in a panic, mentioned that the monster was in the center of the city, but Marnak dismissed the concern, emphasizing the importance of finding Pierre. Following Aaron's directions, Marnak barged into the indicated place and discovered Pierre lying unconscious on a bed. Relieved to see Pierre alive, Marnak vowed not to let him die after narrowly saving his life before. He then carried Pierre on his left shoulder, asking Aaron to hold on tightly, as he wouldn't be able to carry her with both hands. Aaron clung to his shoulders, and together, they rushed out of the location towards a city front gate. Aaron revealed that she knew of a secret passage leading to the outskirts of Guis, but the door was locked. Marnak effortlessly kicked down the locked door and entered the house, impressing Aaron with his strength. After securing themselves, Marnak advised Aaron that if things worsened, they should use this secret passage to escape. When Aaron asked about his own safety, Marnak replied that he needed to return, and he quickly dashed out of the house with Aaron calling after him as priest. While on his way, Marnak came across Cornu, lying in a weakened state on the ground. Recognizing Marnak, Cornu addressed him as Priest Marnak. Marnak realized that his own injuries were severe and there was little he could do to help. He inquired about the whereabouts of the other priest who had accompanied them. Cornu sadly informed him that Patina had already perished. Hurriedly, Marnak asked if there was any way to defeat the demon they were facing. With his last breath, Cornu revealed that the key to defeating the demon lay in the other relic they had brought, the white sword that priest Orvis had managed to stab into the demon's head. According to Cornu, if Marnak could retrieve that sword and drive it into the demon's brain, it would perish. Sadly, Cornu passed away after conveying this crucial information. Marnak then called upon the Mother of Corruption, expressing his intent to claim the 100 divinity he obtained from Cornu. Meanwhile, priest Orvis was seen working on the white sword lodged in the demon's head as it drew closer. Marnak took a daring opportunity and leaped onto the demon's back, holding a steel sword. However, the demon initiated a death roll, throwing Marnak violently back to the ground. Despite the fall, Marnak composed himself and assured the Mother of Corruption that he was all right. The Mother of Corruption's screams filled the air. Marnak then recalled her mentioning that blessings follow disasters, and he smiled, realizing the significance of the turn of events. He noticed the holy relic that had fallen alongside him and found the situation quite intriguing. Taking the relic, he placed it in his chest and prayed to the Mother of Corruption, offering her another holy relic and requesting a new authority while asking her to release her seal. The Mother of Corruption began absorbing the holy relic, resulting in Marnak's divinity increasing to 11,723. Grinning, Marnak remarked that another seal had been lifted. Curious about the impact on the Mother of Corruption, he witnessed the hand of the Mother of Corruption emerging from his chest, now able to move independently. After a while, the hand returned to Marnak, and he informed the Mother of Corruption that he had offered her 10,000 divinity, requesting a new authority in return. In response, a wave of green light enveloped Marnak, and he realized he had acquired the text of corruption authority. This power manifested as dark green metaphysical tattoos appearing all over his body, significantly enhancing his physical abilities. Pleased with this newfound authority, Marnak sat up and acknowledged its simplicity and potency, deeming it quite useful in their current predicament. To his surprise, he noticed that his previously crushed leg had finally healed. While observing the lifeless body of Orvis nearby, Marnak prayed to the Mother of Corruption once more, stating his intention to collect from Orvis's body. Once again, the resounding roars of the rampaging monster reached Marnak's ears. Turning toward the source, he found it strange that the instigators of the demon's rage were members of the teaching sect. Despite all the priests having perished, the demon continued its chaotic rampage, defying Marnak's expectations of demons being mere instinct-driven beasts. Realizing something important, he instructed the hand of the Mother of Corruption to hold on tightly inside his pocket, warning that it might shake during the activation of the text of corruption authority. With determination, Marnak rushed towards the demon, deftly dodging its tail swing and leaping atop the creature. He made his way towards the white sword, noticing the demon's intention to roll again. Anticipating the move, Marnak swiftly maneuvered away, knowing that the same trick wouldn't work twice. In the process, Marnak found himself coughing up blood inside a nearby house, realizing that the corruption from using the text of corruption was spreading rapidly within him. He understood that if the demon continued stalling, the corruption would reach the outside of his body, rendering him helpless. With a sense of urgency, he dashed out of the house and once again jumped on the weary demon's head, recalling Cornu's advice about driving the sword into its brain to kill it. Instead, Marnak smirked and opted to pull the white sword out, calling upon Lord Tradon to awaken. As the sword was removed, a brilliant blue light filled the demon's body before it exploded, vanishing along with the monster. Tradon, now lying on the ground with severe injuries, greeted Marnak with a smile, expressing his meeting with Marnak as a great blessing. Marnak cheerfully dismissed such sentiments, explaining that it all happened because the sword had suppressed Tredon's mind. With pride, he gestured towards the sword and asked how valuable his assistance had been. Tradon, holding Marnak's hand, replied that it was definitely more than worth its weight in gold. We are then shown of a scene where the priest of the flame took a step forward while gesturing. A blue flame from his fingertips gently enveloped the earth. The blue flame crawled on the ground like a living being, melting only the snow. The ranger sincerely admired the marvelous sight. The priest of the flame, who melted all the surrounding snow, did not answer. The blue flames swept through the white snow, revealing some traces underneath. "It is truly such an incredible authority," said the ranger, but the ranger also proceeds to state that there was no bodies and that, since it's been a while, he think a monster or beast devoured the body. The women replied that that was possible. She then thanked the ranger for leading her all the way here and also states that there was one last thing she would like to ask for, and that was the name of all the nearby cities. Marnak was spotted walking amidst the rubble of the ruined city, accompanied by Tredon's butler, who led him to a house and graciously opened the door for him. Inside the house, Marnak received a warm greeting from Lord Tradon, who expressed his anticipation of Marnak's arrival and commented on his ever-improving appearance. Grateful for the compliments, Marnak acknowledged Tredon's gratitude, to which Tradon referred to him as their demon slaughterer, acknowledging his invaluable role in defending the town. In a sarcastic tone, Marnak pointed out that the demon was still very much alive. Tradon countered that demons deserved to live too and believed that no life was meant to be born just to die. Marnak playfully imagined that after everything was settled, Tradon must have spread the story of how Marnak defended the town and saved him, earning him the grandiose title of Demon Slaughterer among the townsfolk. As they sat down, Marnak noticed how smoothly Tradon's prosthetic arm and leg moved. Tradon admitted that he only moved this way in Marnak's presence, as he had to feign a limp around others, but such natural movement came at a cost. Curious, Marnak asked about the price he had to pay, and Tradon humorously replied that his body hair would eventually lose strength and fall like leaves in autumn, hinting at a potential bald head in the future. Changing the subject, Tradon inquired if Marnak had about a week's worth of time. Marnak reassured him that he had more than enough, leading Tradon to reveal a job he had received, specifically requesting Marnak's assistance. Puzzled, Marnak asked why they wanted him, and Tradon explained that the requester had heard stories about the renowned demon slaughterer and believed Marnak was perfect for the job. The task involved relics of the ancient empire, with a reward of 5 nips of gold, which would be paid in advance. If Marnak proved instrumental in exploring the ruins, he would even be granted one of the discovered relics. The man inquired about Marnak's interest, and Marnak considered the murder mystery, thinking it would be better to investigate himself. With enthusiasm, Marnak happily accepted the job, responding with a bright smile. We are then explained that a long time ago, there was an ancient empire that ended the era of distraught mages and brought about unity to the continent, and that in their current age where technology was being recreated, those holy relics are known as precious treasures that contain powerful abilities, and in other words, most items that are considered high-rank items in this world are actually relics of the ancient empire. After a few days had passed, Marnak found himself introducing himself to the group with whom he would explore the ruins. A man named Carmen Valtus revealed himself as the one who had requested Marnak's assistance. As he extended his hand for a handshake, Carmen confirmed Marnak's suspicions and disclosed that Anthony Valtus of the Black Wolves was his father, clarifying that he was an illegitimate child. Marnak couldn't help but ponder how someone as principled as Carmen's father could have an illegitimate child, especially after losing his wife. This made him realize that rumors and reality about a person often diverge. Curious to know more about the others in the group, Marnak asked Carmen to introduce them. Carmen obliged and pointed out a mage wearing a head-covering robe named Tunisa, who would be their guide to the ancient relics. Next, he introduced a large man with horns on his head named Sukus, a member of the unicorn tribe. Carmen remarked that they could always rely on Sukus due to his size and strength. Marnak and Sukus shook hands and exchanged greetings. Sukus addressed Marnak as the demon slaughterer, but Marnak modestly requested to be called simply Marnak. Sukus disagreed, stating that achieving such a feat was nothing to be embarrassed about. After the introductions were completed, Carmen suggested that they set out for the ruins, mentioning that it would take approximately 2 days on foot to reach the site. 2 days later, the party was seen camping in the jungle. Carmen noticed that Marnak wasn't sleeping and suggested that he should get some rest. Marnak replied that he had already had enough sleep and no longer felt tired. Carmen remarked that there was still plenty of time before the sun rose and inquired if Marnak had any interesting stories to share, particularly about women, believing that someone like Marnak must have had many encounters with them. Embarrassed, Marnak likened himself to fresh snow covering a field, implying that he had little experience with women. Carmen found this surprising and asked if Marnak had any particular preferences when it came to women. Marnak responded that he appreciated women who chose to be by his side. Carmen agreed with Marnak's sentiment, emphasizing that seeing one's lady sleeping peacefully next to them was a wonderful experience. He believed a woman's heart was the most important, acknowledging the significance of a loving heart housed in a generous chest. He openly admitted that he preferred women with a larger chest. With a soft smile, Marnak acknowledged the value of having a clear vision of one's desires but advised Carmen not to discuss such matters in front of women. Carmen reassured Marnak that he didn't talk about these things with others. He felt comfortable sharing them only with Marnak, whom he considered to be like an old friend. Marnak reciprocated the feeling, expressing that he also found talking to Carmen to be a friendly and enjoyable experience. As they continued chatting through the night, the mother of corruption expressed her displeasure with their conversation, screaming murder on the side. The following day, as they made their way towards the ruins, Marnak engaged in a mental conversation with the mother of corruption, admitting that he liked talking to Carmen despite her advice to be selective with friends. In the midst of his thoughts, Tunisia brought the group to a halt, announcing their arrival at the ruins and stating that she would now open the entrance. Marnak explained that entering the ruins of the ancient empire was a multi-step process. First, they needed to locate a key, then proceed to the coordinates indicated on the key. Next, they had to decipher the ancient language inscribed on the key, a task only mages could accomplish, making them indispensable for explorations like these, except for players. Players of the game, like Marnak, had the ability to read the ancient language, but he kept this fact a secret. A portal began to open before them, and Carmen urged the group to enter. As they marveled at the scenery inside the ruins, Carmen commented on its remarkable preservation compared to other ruins he had visited. He expressed confidence in finding plenty of artifacts here. With a wide grin, Marnak felt elated to finally see the ruins he had previously only seen in photographs, noting that his heart felt like it was going to burst with excitement. Unbeknownst to him, Tunisia observed him with an annoyed expression during this moment of excitement. As they ventured deeper into the ruins, the party encountered a massive door inscribed with ancient text that read, "Prove that imperial blood flows through your body." Tunisia warned the group to be prepared for battle unless they possessed ancient imperial blood. The door began to open, revealing the guardians of the ruins. These bipedal, human-sized monsters were partly mechanical, clad in black leather and gleaming white metal armor. Both sides engaged in a fierce battle. Sukkuz wielded his axe to knock back the horde, while Tunisia unleashed powerful spells, causing explosions that decimated many guardians. Marnak, too, drew his sword and skillfully cut down the enemies. He was almost caught off guard by one of the guardians attacking from behind, but Carmen swiftly shot it down, earning Marnak's gratitude. After the battle, Sukkuz confronted Tunisia, expressing concern for pushing too far into enemy lines, potentially putting Marnak and himself at risk. Tunisia coldly defended her approach, stating it was the most efficient way to eliminate the enemy. Sukkuz grew increasingly angry at her response, but Carmen intervened to defuse the tension. He praised Marnak's prowess as a demon slayer, and Marnak modestly acknowledged it, admitting that he felt ashamed to display such violence as a priest. In turn, he complimented Carmen's skill with the bow, and Carmen revealed that he had been practicing archery since childhood. Their conversation was interrupted by Tunisia, who impatiently inquired about their departure time, as she had plenty of mana left. Sukkuz objected, stating that those who needed to physically exert themselves, like Marnak and himself, required rest. Tunisia countered that everyone else agreed with her, and that reaching the end of the ruins quickly was more important than wasting time. She accused Sukkuz of seeking attention and provoking a scene. Sukkuz was angered by her words, but Carmen stepped in again, suggesting that they rest before moving on, putting an end to the discussion. As the commotion settled, Marnak reflected on how mages in this world were usually arrogant and tended to be unpleasant people. He explained that becoming a mage was relatively easy for those born with mana. It awakened once they reached a certain age, flooding their minds with knowledge of the ancient language. Using this mana, they could effortlessly learn ancient spells that defied the laws of the world, transforming them into mages. However, the overwhelming amount of knowledge made them disdain learning anything new, resulting in most mages becoming stubborn and uneducated individuals who cared little for others. He considered Tunisia comparatively more well-mannered than other mages he had encountered. After a well-deserved rest, Carmen announced that they would proceed to the next area. However, just as he finished speaking, the massive door closed shut, and a powerful crash shook the ground. A formidable being, entirely made of pure white metal with a blue jewel on its forehead, emerged as the true guardian of the ruin. Marnak realized that the previous enemies they faced were mere weaklings in comparison to this true challenge. Tunisia commanded Sukkurs to move aside and launched a powerful attack, but the guardian swiftly neutralized it with the blue jewel's power. In a devastating strike, the guardian killed Sukkurs without a chance to react. Marnak then asked Carmen if he wanted to live, to which Carmen responded with confusion and a yes. Seizing the opportunity, Marnak swiftly delivered a knockout punch, advising Carmen to tuck his chin in to survive. He then informed the mother of corruption that he was in a hurry and didn't have time for prayers, urging her to send the giant down immediately. A portal opened up in the sky, and the giant of corruption descended, engaging the enemy giant in a fierce battle. As they fought, Marnak quickly carried Carmen to safety, mentioning that the giant of corruption was always reliable to call upon, and he wondered if the mother of corruption agreed with that sentiment. While running, he also collected the divinity of Tunisia and Sukkurs. After safely placing Carmen in a nearby area, Marnak observed that it would take some time for the giant of corruption to finish its battle with the enemy giant. The hand of the mother of corruption expressed its annoyance, and Marnak acknowledged that the hand was right. Activating the arts of corruption, he decided it was time to intervene and assist. Marnak's target became the white metal giant, specifically the blue gem lodged in its head, as it seemed to be the only distinct part of its body. He believed that destroying the gem might trigger something significant. Marnak leaped onto the back of the giant of corruption, and with a powerful strike, he sliced through the blue gem. The giant crumbled, and the monster of corruption roared in triumph. Marnak expressed gratitude to the monster for its help, but then the mother of corruption pointed to another direction. When Marnak turned to look, he saw 3 more giants descending from the room's ceiling, and he nervously questioned how many of them there were. After some time, Carmen woke up to find Marnak beside him. Marnak asked if Sukkurs and Tunisia were dead, to which Carmen sadly confirmed it, blaming himself for their deaths due to his greed. Marnak reassured him that they were hired for a reason and knew the risks, urging him not to blame himself excessively. Carmen asked where they were, and Marnak revealed they were beyond the black door. Although surprised, Carmen understood it was something Marnak was willing to knock him out to keep him from seeing. He'd promised to repay Marnak for saving his life, and Marnak happily accepted the promise. Feeling better, Carmen agreed to move on, and they continued their journey. Marnak explained that after defeating one metal giant with the help of the corruption giant, 3 more giants appeared from the ceiling. He left the corruption giant to fight them while he escaped, and he hoped the giant would return safely. Eventually, they came across another giant door, and Marnak remarked that they had reached the end of the ruins. Upon entering the room, they saw an altar with 2 objects, a necklace with large beads and a chainsaw-like sword. Marnak recognized the objects from stories and books, and Carmen asked for the necklace, offering a handsome reward in return. Marnak asked about the necklace's purpose, and he explained it was called the Bloodline Pathfinder. By spilling some blood on it, and thinking of a specific bloodline, the necklace would point them in its direction. Carmen revealed his plan to find his mother, whom he had never met before. In response, Marnak asked if it was fine for him to take the sword. After a while, we see Marnak and Carmen resting beside a bonfire. Carmen expressed his preference to avoid encountering any metal giants larger than him for the time being, and Marnak smiled in agreement, saying he felt the same way. They lamented how even a moment's delay in the ruins could have resulted in the metal giants catching up to them. Marnak then took off the necklace he had and granted Carmen a blessing upon his request. Marnak prayed for him, asking for the protection of the god of preservation. Carmen closed his eyes and pricked his fingertip, allowing drops of blood to fall on the marble of the necklace. The artifact absorbed his blood, and a tiny needle emerged, pointing westward. Tears streamed down Carmen's face as he said, "Oh, Mother! I knew you were alive!" Marnak, beside him, expressed his relief that the necklace worked as Carmen had hoped. Carmen thanked Marnak and asked how he could repay the debt. Marnak assured him that whenever the time came, he would gladly accept Carmen's gratitude. Then, Carmen made another request, asking to continue working with Marnak until he found his mother. Since Marnak was heading westward, they could visit the capital together, and Carmen would reward him generously for the job, covering all travel expenses. Marnak took a moment to respond, wanting to avoid appearing overly eager about money. He calmly added more firewood to the bonfire before smiling and agreeing to help Carmen in his quest to find his mother. Carmen expressed his gratitude happily, thankful for Marnak's support on this journey. Rin gave Marnak a glum expression, expressing her displeasure at his sudden departure. Marnak chuckled awkwardly, explaining that he wasn't leaving immediately, but rather the next day. Aaron persisted, saying it was still sudden, and inquired about his destination. She playfully accused him of being mean, and the mother of corruption seemed to take delight in her victory. She asked him to give her his hand, and he complied. In return, she placed a silver mercenary plaque in his palm, a token she had worked hard on. Curious about what he should say, Marnak uncertainly responded with a "Thank you." Aaron wasn't satisfied with his answer and demanded a promise. She wanted him to promise that they would meet again, and she assured him she would come back to see him. Marnak smiled quietly, knowing that such a promise might be challenging to fulfill given his wandering life. He chose to remain silent instead of deceiving her. Aaron sighed deeply, playfully scolding him for living a life that might make it difficult to find a partner before old age. She reiterated her request for a promise to meet again, and Marnak finally responded. He suggested they meet again when she gets the chance, hinting that the opportunity might come earlier than expected for him. Perplexed, he asked what he meant, but Aaron simply smiled and patted him on the back, telling him not to worry about it and let curiosity be his punishment. After some time had passed, Marnak made a visit to Lord Traydon, and during their conversation, Marnak mentioned that the side effects of a certain treatment had taken effect quicker than he had anticipated. Traydon, with a laugh, humorously remarked that it wasn't much of an issue as most people are born without hair anyway, suggesting that Marnak had merely embraced a more authentic form of human nature. The conversation then turned to Marnak's plan to head to the capital, and Traydon revealed that he had prepared something for him upon hearing the news. He handed Marnak a letter, explaining that it was a letter of recommendation. Traydon mentioned that he would have loved to repay Marnak in cash, but he had already used up all his funds to repair the damages in Guis, leaving him with no money to spare at the moment. Instead, he offered the letter of recommendation, which might come in handy if Marnak needed help in the capital. However, Traydon advised him to avoid visiting his friends there unless it was absolutely necessary, as they could be quite difficult to deal with. Marnak thanked Traydon for the thoughtful gift, and Traydon responded by suggesting that he consider it a token of gratitude from a friend. He then wished Marnak a wonderful life, emphasizing that life was indeed too short. Several days later, Marnak and Carmen were seen traversing through the snow. Carmen noted that it had been a few days since they left Guis and estimated that they had about half a day's journey remaining before reaching the next town, Kelton. Meanwhile, the mother of corruption seemed to be expressing her displeasure with Carmen, possibly because of the potential value of his divinity. Marnak pondered the situation, recognizing that Carmen's worth was rated at 3.5 fingers and that he had the potential to develop further. However, he appreciated Carmen's cheerful personality, and preferred to keep him alive rather than seeking to exploit his divinity. During their walk, Marnak suddenly sensed something and instinctively drew his sword. When Carmen inquired about the cause of his alertness, Marnak responded, "Blood," indicating that something dangerous was nearby. He warned Carmen that they were being approached, and suddenly, a giant snow spider leaped down towards them. Both of them managed to evade the initial attack, and the spider retreated back into the trees. Carmen asked if it was a snow spider, to which Marnak confirmed. The spider then lunged at Carmen, and as he prepared to defend himself, Marnak swiftly attacked the creature, cutting off one of its legs. He noted that he would have to clean his chainsaw-like sword after using it in such a manner, and the scene portrayed the vicious slashing of the snow spider, with blood and flesh scattering due to the powerful chainsaw sword. At Gui's, Lord Treyon welcomed a guest, a blue-haired girl, and apologized for having to talk in the office due to their greeting room being destroyed. The girl reassured him not to worry about her. Treyon inquired about the reason for her visit, noting that it was quite uncommon for someone from the Blue Flame of the Torch sect to go on a pilgrimage like this. The girl handed him a poorly drawn picture and asked if he had seen a man who resembled the sketch. Though Treyon immediately recognized the face as that of Marnax with his extraordinary intuition, he concealed his reaction and casually inquired about the man's identity, claiming he couldn't recall anyone like that. He suggested the girl leave if there was nothing else to discuss, citing his lack of time during such busy moments. Once the girl left the room, Treyon pondered her intentions, suspecting that her search for Marnak might not have good intentions. However, he decided not to inform Marnak about it, believing he would be fine without the added concern. Meanwhile, Marnak observed Carmen cutting open the snow spiders they had killed. Curious, he approached Carmen and asked what he was doing. Excitedly, Carmen explained that he was extracting the venom sac from the snow spider, which had powerful anesthetic properties that could be useful in various situations. He mentioned that the sac could be applied to arrow tips and also sold for a good price as it is. When asked how he knew about this, Carmen revealed his experience in participating in numerous monster hunts, learning through practical experience. As they continued their journey, Marnak and Carmen finally reached Kelton City. However, upon their arrival, they were met by two guards who appeared confused and questioned how they had arrived. Marnak replied simply, stating that they had walked all the way to Kelton. The guards, speaking in an alarmed manner, informed Marnak and Carmen that Kelton had been blocked off for the past 3 days due to monster attacks. Curious, Marnak asked the guard for more details. The guard explained that the frequency of monster attacks had increased, and when they investigated the sites, there were no remnants or corpses left behind. Carmen pointed out the peculiar nature of the situation, especially with snow spiders, which usually left some traces due to their blood-sucking nature. As they were discussing this, another guard approached them, summoning Marnak and Carmen to meet Lord Stern. They were led to Lord Stern's estate, where he greeted Marnak as the Demon Slayer. Lord Stern expressed his delight at Marnak's visit and stated that the current monster situation was related to the reason he called for them. He revealed that the attacks were being organized by worshippers of an evil spirit. Marnak questioned the significance of blocking off an entire city for the actions of a single evil worshipper. Lord Stern clarified that several sects were involved, and Kelton, an ordinary city with nothing notable, seemed an unlikely target. With tears in his eyes, Lord Stern shared his frustration at not being able to resolve the situation as quickly as his late father would have. He explained that while they had sufficient supplies and morale among the troops was high, they were isolated from the other cities, and no one knew about the blockade. Therefore, they needed someone to brave the monsters and spread the news to other cities, creating a suicide corps for the task. After considering the situation, Marnak decided to help as much as possible and offered his assistance. Marnak was sitting in his room, examining the item he received from Lord Stern, a rare item typically found in the western desert regions. He marveled at its ability to conjure water, which would be useful for cleaning up after using the chainsaw sword. As he stored the item in his inventory, he reflected on the real reason why he accepted Lord Stern's offer. He believed it might be an omen that the main quest was about to begin, and there was one specific reason for this conclusion. Marnak explained that the collaboration between 4 evil spirit sects was highly unusual. In the game, the title of evil spirit wasn't as menacing as it sounded. It was merely a label given by the main gods to some other gods, resulting in stigmatization and persecution. However, it was uncommon for sects devoted to evil spirits to work together, as their followers were often mentally unstable. Unlike the sects under the main god, which collaborated to combat evil spirits, those serving evil spirits rarely formed alliances. Thus, Marnak sensed that something significant was happening for these sects to join forces and surround the city. The scene shifted to Marnak and Carmen, along with 3 other men, riding on horseback toward other cities seeking support. Along the way, Carmen noticed a large group of various monsters chasing them. In response, Marnak decided to divert their attention and called for Carmen to bring reinforcements. Carmen expressed concern, believing it was too dangerous for Marnak to handle them all. Marnak, however, knew they couldn't outrun the monsters and had to take action. With a confident smile, he leaped off his horse, encouraging Carmen to bring help. As Carmen shouted his name in worry, Marnak playfully remarked if his line just now sounded cool before striking the ground. The monsters halted, staring at the smoke clearing from Marnak's fall. Surrounded by green energy, and clutching his sword, he challenged the evil spirit worshippers hiding in the shadows, daring them to come out. The monsters charged at Marnak, and he met their charge head-on, cutting them down one by one. After dispatching the last of the monsters, Marnak, now covered in blood, humorously remarked that if this became a daily occurrence, he might need to carry a bathtub with him. Entering a cave, Marnak noticed various items scattered inside. He recalled the guards mentioning that the attacked carriages were empty, likely looted by the monsters. Further into the cave, he saw a body devoured by snow spiders, cocoon bodies hanging from the ceiling. He found it perplexing that the monsters used the remains as decorations. The mother of corruption expressed her concern with the word murder, but Marnak assured her he wouldn't let his guard down. Continuing through the cave, he encountered more and more cocoons. Marnak speculated on the number of humans the spiders had consumed and wondered if they were raising offspring. Reaching the end of the passage, he entered a vast cavern, noticing the tunnels seemed big enough for multiple giants to live there. With a smirk, he thought about the divinity persistently trailing him, taunting it to come out. He knew it was present, and above him, a large number of snow spiders, led by a massive queen, observed him from the ceiling. The queen descended onto the front of Marnak, ready to face him. Marnak urgently beseeched the mother of corruption to create the line of corruption, for he needed her authority to carry out a sacrificial act that very night, slaughtering the head of the human-eating spider. As he spoke, an otherworldly portal materialized in the ceiling, and through it, the formidable corruption giant descended, dealing a mighty blow to the snow spider queen's head. Despite the colossal confrontation between the giants, Marnak observed that the snow spider queen towered over the corruption giant, being nearly twice his size. Recognizing the urgency of the situation, Marnak determined that he had to join the battle and began cutting through the smaller snow spiders to approach the queen. In an authoritative voice, Marnak instructed the corruption giant to restrain the queen, seizing her legs, while he himself charged towards the queen's midsection. The queen's body was divided into 2 sections, the cephalothorax and abdomen, by a distinct border, which Marnak relentlessly targeted with his sword, slashing and hacking with determination. The corruption giant applied force to stretch the queen's massive body, ultimately causing her enormous abdomen to rupture and tear off. Only her head and chest remained intact, and in her agony, the queen's once formidable roar diminished into a fading scream. Marnak, landing gracefully by the side of the victorious corruption giant, offered an apology for his previous retreat, and the giant celebrated his triumph with a jubilant roar. However, to Marnak's surprise, he heard a voice emanating from the mouth of the fallen spider queen. The source of the voice became apparent as a woman, who scornfully accused Marnak of being no different from herself, a follower of an evil spirit. Undeterred, Marnak probed the woman, demanding to know the purpose behind the siege of Kelton. Defiant and resolute, the woman refused to divulge any information, maintaining her secrecy even in the face of Marnak's swift sword thrust that pierced her shoulder and elicited a sharp cry of pain. Unyielding, she rebuffed his query again, goading him with the question of what he intended to do next. In response to the woman's obstinate stance, Marnak made an unequivocal decision. He beheaded her with unwavering determination, reaping 1,000 divinity from the decisive act. Marnak found himself pondering whether any of the worshippers would reveal the truth behind everything. The mother of corruption's ominous muttering added to his contemplation, and Marnak asked, "Did you say the third one?" And with a knowing smirk, Marnak declared that he would bet on the fourth worshipper to reveal the answers. Observing the burning city of Kelton, Marnak acknowledged that they had been caught. A woman stood next to the lifeless body of Lord Stern, commenting on how he tried to flee but was eventually caught. She scoffed at the notion that being a lord could offer any protection, as those who attempted to shield him had wasted their efforts. A blond man with an eye patch asked the woman about the incarnation. She responded that it was unstable, and extracting divinity from living beings was no easy task. She lamented that despite the plan not being fully prepared, they had lost some of their followers and had to act now with diminished chances of success. Angrily, a black-haired woman chimed in, defending herself against accusations that she let Carmen escape on purpose. She blamed the interference of 3 men accompanying Carmen, stating that if the Spider Queen, Layla, had sent some spiders, Carmen wouldn't have gotten away. The blond man intervened, urging them not to fight among themselves. He suggested deploying troops to hunt down Carmen and his group. He reminded the black-haired woman of the years they had invested in the plan, trying to maintain focus on their mission. As the blond man and the eye-patch woman left, the black-haired woman, addressed as Parna, continued to vent her frustrations. Suddenly, Marnak appeared before them, holding his sword. Before anyone could react, he swiftly dispatched the blond man and cut him in half. Parna was startled by the scene and noticed Marnak talking to himself. Marnak justified his actions to the mother of corruption, acknowledging that he had skipped asking the third worshipper questions before killing them. However, he explained that these individuals had the power to manipulate divinity and posed a threat to him. He believed that the mother of corruption preferred to see him unharmed rather than winning a meaningless bet. Facing Parna, Marnak demanded to know the purpose behind surrounding Kelton, seeking answers from the woman who was now the only one left standing. After some time, Marnak gazed at a massive, fleshy mass covered in red blood clots, and he couldn't help but be impressed by its enormity. Parna, the woman he had confronted, affirmed that their work on this monstrous creation had taken 3 years, making it truly impressive. Marnak was surprised that Parna answered his questions so willingly, revealing their dark plot. According to Parna's account, their plan was to sacrifice all the people within Kelton to create a powerful ball of divinity called the Incarnation. Despite needing 5 more days for preparation, recent events and the loss of Carmen forced them to accelerate their plans. Marnak, realizing the danger posed by the monstrous being before it awoke, decided to attack it with his chainsaw sword, hoping to prevent further harm. Ignoring Parna's pleas, Marnak struck the monster, causing it to react violently. A holy relic inside the monster pierced Marnak's shoulder, but he remained undeterred. A barely human-shaped form emerged from the fleshy mass, and Marnak was aware of the potential to awaken a new authority with the monster's divinity. Marnak swiftly dealt with Parna, beheading her and absorbing her divinity. He calculated that his total divinity now stood at 8,592, just shy of the 10,000 required for a new authority. Recognizing that directly attacking the monster with his chainsaw sword would lead to endless regeneration, he decided on another strategy. Marnak readied himself and quickly sprinted away from the monster, a risky plan forming in his mind. He started collecting divinity from the corpses scattered throughout the city, knowing he needed just a bit more to obtain the new authority. As he ran, Marnak contemplated the high-stakes game he was playing, evading the relentless monster until he could amass enough divinity to acquire a new authority, while the creature pursued him with its cries of pain echoing in the air. That's it for this video. Thank you for watching our video. Please like and subscribe and stay tuned for part 2. Normies out.